Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome, everybody, to a glorious episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. PORSBR is my Twitter handle, and RHOLM22 is Ryan's. Don't forget PORSBR. PORSBR will get you 10% off of activelyblack.com gear on their site. So definitely check that out as well. We want to thank everybody for watching the show, listening to the show on from Clayton, North Carolina, Carlsbad, California, Newark, Newark, New Jersey, New Orleans, Louisiana. Derek, I see you, Derek. You can't get it by us. North Adams, Massachusetts, Columbus, Ohio, Sacramento, California, and Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Out there, Brett Venables watching the Put on Raiders podcast. All right, cool. A lot of stuff going on with the Raiders. Obviously, we're gonna just kind of we kind of perused through that game last night. I mean, I didn't watch the game. I was at a USC game, and I when Ryan was texting me, and I just thought it was just that mess against the Cowboys was pretty bad. So I don't know if we should really go through all that.
Ryan's like,
I'd rather not. So instead, we can roll through Ryan's. Every year, Ryan does his 53-man cuts. We'll see who makes the team. As far as that goes, some were pretty easy, some were pretty hard. So let's start with the special teams real quick. We know Mr. 62-yard. Can you imagine if Lane Kiffin had Daniel Carson? He might try an 80-yard field goal.
Yeah, he might go past that 76-yarder he had Janikowski take, but thank you to the Minnesota Vikings for releasing Daniel Carlson, who is, I'm going to put him 1B. I mean, he's right there with Justin Tucker for the best kicker in the league. I mean, he's phenomenal, and he's money. I mean, he drilled a 50-yarder like it was nothing, a 62-yarder that would have been good from, 67, 68, maybe 70.
Crazy.
And he was kicking the ball into the end zone. They're like, yeah, we've had enough of evaluating guys covering kicks, so let's just kick this thing out of the end zone, which is what I hope they do starting week 1. No returns, just kick it deep.
No returns whatsoever. We don't need any of those. Especially, especially with holding. Don't waste your time with that. So Carlson, how do you pronounce his long snapper's name?
Bobenmeyer.
Bobenmeyer. So he's there, and Carlson and Cole are two of the best in the league. They have probably one of the best kicking games in all of football. So we won't spend much time on that. The safeties, though. So here we have Ryan has Epps, Trevor Moehrig, Teamer, Smith, and then Pau Mao. So how'd you come up with these 5 choices here?
Yeah, I think the first 3 are pretty self-explanatory. You're going to have starters in Epps and Moehrig. Epps will play strong. Moehrig will play free. Teamer, to me, makes the team as he's your big nickel. When you want to go big nickel, he's your big nickel. And then he's a standout special teams player. Didn't suit up last night, so I would assume his spot is pretty safe on this team. Mm-hmm. Chris Smith is a young draft pick who's shown some instincts at the free safety position. When there was a tie in some of these rooms, I just went with who this regime has taken, because this regime wants to build through the draft, and they're not going to, kind of cast aside some of the guys they took in the last year or two unless the guy got beat out by another player. So I went with Smith, but Polamalu is kind of the tiebreaker. Originally, I had 5 linebackers and 4 safeties, but then when I started thinking about the final spot or two, Polamalu can play safety, he can play nickel backer, he can play dime backer, you can use him to blitz, and you can kind of move him around on defense and then special teams. He's a standout special team guy. He was playing gunner in a lot of these games, and he was recovering kicks. So he gets the special team plus. If anything happened to Teamer, then I think Polamalu is the next guy in the big nickel. So when you start thinking about 4th and 5th string on these rosters, you have to think what's in front of them. I don't think Moehrig, Epps, or Smith can play down in the box as kind of that big nickel. So the Raiders play a lot of big nickels, so that's why I kept Polamalu on the roster.
I do. I think that, I mean, if we could just put that Polamalu game against the Chargers in Las Vegas in a bottle. I mean, and they used him that way, and and that would be like the perfect way to use him because he was great in that game, and they were able to get pressure from blitzing the safety, which was something that we haven't seen probably since that one game. But let's see here. We got cornerbacks. You got Peters, Bennett, Hobbs, Shelley, Long, and Amik. Amik survives again. Amik lives forever with the Raiders.
Yeah, this was the hardest for him to cut down because you could go a number of directions with those last three guys. I could see all three not making it, or all three making it, or a combination. But the wild card here is Brandon Faison. So for this exercise, I assume that the injury that he has is going to keep him out a little bit. So he may be on the 53, and then he goes on IR, and one of these guys comes back on Tuesday or on Wednesday. But I couldn't put him on the roster without knowing what his injury status was. So if he's healthy, and he did practice a little bit last week, if he's past the injury he has, he makes this team. I just don't know. So for this exercise, not knowing the injury, I didn't go that way. But obviously, I think the starters are Peters and Bennett and Hobbs. Those will be your three. We don't know the health status of Bennett, though. He's missed practice for like 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. If there's something lingering there, then you need some outside corners because Hobbs is going to play inside. So then the outside corners are Shelley and Long. I think Long didn't have a great game yesterday, but he was good in the scrimmage the day I went. Apparently, he was good in the joint practices. He'd been fairly decent in the 2 preseason games prior to yesterday. This new regime brought him in, and he has experience. He started in the National Football League, which the other guys he's going up against really haven't. And then kind of Shelley, this new regime brought him in. He was good last year on the Vikings. There's a relationship here with Champ Kelly. He's kind of one of their guys. He's a special teamer. There's some toughness. I know he's undersized, but I ended up keeping him over like Webb or Tyler Hall because I kept Robertson. And the reason I kept Robertson over Hall, and I know a lot of people have asked me this question already, is I don't know what the status of Faison and Bennett are. So if those guys are going to miss time and they're not ready to go week 1, then you need a guy that can play inside and outside and special teams. And that's kind of where Meek makes this team, is because he can play inside, outside, and he's a special teams guy. Whereas Tyler Hall is strictly a slot corner. That versatility, I think, is what gives Robertson the look here as the 6th corner. And who knows, if Faison is healthy, then I would take Faison over Robertson. I just don't know that he is.
Yeah, I mean, just the size alone from Faison would help. Would help if the cover skills are even. Do you feel like this is a secondary? I know Peters is there, but do you feel like this is a secondary that can outdo last year's group? Is this group better, and can this group force more INTs? I mean, it can be, those can be forced from the defensive line because if they get pressure on the quarterback and makes a mistake. But are the Raiders going to get more turnovers this year? Because that's one of the biggest things for the secondary. They have to get more INTs. Otherwise, it's like, what are we doing out here?
I do think if those first 3 stay healthy, if Peters, Bennett, and Hobbs play a majority of the games this year and don't miss a lot of time, the secondary is much improved. Mm-hmm. The depth with Shelley, Long, and Robertson, if those 3 make it, it's a little better than last year. Another reason why I went away from Tyler Hall is you start paying attention to who's playing when in these preseason games. And Tyler Hall, all of his snaps essentially came late 3rd quarter, 4th quarter in these games. And Robertson was starting these games and playing in the corner and playing a lot of time in the first half. Now, he didn't have a great game against the Cowboys, but I do think the whole body of work, if you count what he did last year when he got thrown into the mix, his special teams ability, he's had a pretty good camp. He's been in position for some pick sixes and dropped one a week ago. He jumped a route against San Francisco that would have been a pick six if the quarterback had thrown it. So I do like Robertson there. But this cornerback room is deep. They may trade one of these guys. There may be interest around the league that makes this decision easier. But I think keeping 11 in the secondary, there's guys they want to develop, some younger guys like Smith and Polamalu. You need special teamers, and then you need a variety of different guys on the inside. And with Robertson, Shelley, and Bennett, Robertson, Shelley, and Hobbs, you have 3 guys that can play a slot if you need to. And they're going to play a lot of big nickel and a lot of dime.
Yeah. We're obligated to talk about the linebackers. We're obligated. And I grew up in my household. We had Patriot fans and my relatives. We had Cowboys fans and we had Steeler fans. So rough talking football with those folks growing up. And they keep texting my Steelers fans my Steelers family keeps texting me saying, "You guys really gonna start Spillane?" So I think that's what the plan is. So they're putting a lot into Spillane because I'm hearing from Ziegler that they're surprised how good he is in coverage, all those things like that. So like, I mean, that's interesting to me. And he's after he said that, he said, we know what's being said about us on social media and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, fine. I mean, if you hear, you listen to that, whatever. What are your thoughts about this group? I mean, I think it just looks like a group where you're going to end up having, they're going to call me or you to start like probably week 10 because I just don't know how, you can count on a guy like Diablo who never stays healthy.
Yeah, this was tough. I only kept 4. Um, I do think the 4 I kept obviously were Spillane, Diablo, the starters. I kept Masterson and Bolton, who's a core special teamers, as the 2 backups. Bolton's been playing fairly well on defense when he's gotten some snaps this preseason, attacking downhill. But he's the 4th linebacker. I didn't keep Amani Burney, the rookie, the 7th rounder. He hasn't shown much the last 2 weeks. I do think he can get through waivers and onto the practice squad. I do think 2 of these guys, and I think Drake Thomas again didn't have a great game yesterday. I do think both of those guys get onto the practice squad. So essentially, the Raiders will have 6. 2 of them will be on the practice squad. They could be game day call-ups if anything happened to these other guys. And if anything did happen and they got low in the linebacking core on game day, that's where you just play big nickel and you have, Teamer and pull them out that can come up and play close to the line of scrimmage as kind of that extra defender. So it's a little light in the middle linebacker group, but I don't think as much as we like Drake Thomas, he didn't show much in the game yesterday. He was kind of just running around trying to make plays and wasn't anywhere near the ball. And Bernie hasn't really shown much other than running down that sack and getting his hands on a ball early in that 49ers game. He's left a lot to be desired the last 2 weeks from the broadcast view that I've seen. So I think it's a pretty safe bet that both those guys clear waivers. So that's why I went only 4 in that box because they can call up guys on game day if they need to.
So we got on the edge, we got Crosby, Jones, Wilson, and Malcolm Kuntz. Kind of put. I think late in the preseason he can end up starting playing a little bit better. What are your thoughts about this group? Obviously, we know what Crosby can do. He is all world. Jones, we don't know the extent of his injury. Maybe they're just holding him out of camp, and maybe they're going to unleash him against the Broncos. We'll see there. Tyree, I mean, he was playing against third string offensive linemen and walking them back to the quarterback. I mean, at least you want to see him do that as well. And then Kuntz, they don't like you made a good point about like the speed rush. They really don't have a speed rusher like him on the roster, so that makes sense to keep him.
And he plays special teams. I like Jordan Willis. The problem with Jordan Willis is he's too similar to what you get out of Jones. And Wilson as in a bigger defensive end that can set the edge in the run game with some bull rush and power rush abilities, but he's not a speed rusher. He's not going to bend the pocket. It's more of an effort rusher who just gets by on just a good motor. I'd like to see him get on the practice squad. He's the one that I think if he gets out on the market, if they do release him, he'll sign with another team that'll use him as a 3rd or 4th rusher. As much as I don't like Malcolm Kuntz, I do like the option of having a designated speed rusher that I can bring in just to rush the passer if I need to. I don't want him playing on running downs, but I kept an extra defensive tackle, a bigger body on the inside to accommodate for that. And like I said, Kuntz does run down and cover kicks on special teams. So I went 4 there as well instead of 5.
In this group, let's just say Crosby has 13 sacks. Will Max Crosby out sack the rest of the 3?
Combined?
Combined.
And you're setting it at 13?
I'm setting it at 13.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to give Okay. I do think that you could get to 15 with those 3. If you can get 6 or 7 out of Jones, 6 or 7 out of Wilson, and maybe 2 out of Kuntz, 2.5. Kuntz isn't going to get Max Crosby doesn't come off the field. Yeah. So I don't know if there's going to be a lot of opportunities unless something happened. If Wilson shows that he can slide down and rush from the inside on 3rd downs and he's effective in there, and something happens to Chandler Jones and he misses a bunch of time, then that's where Kuntz is going to get his snaps. But he's clearly the 4th guy that may come in and spell one of these guys for 3 or 4 plays, and he's not going to go out there and play 15, 20 plays a game.
Yeah, and I just thought it was interesting to see if they could out sack. Who's gonna have it with was Max Crosby out sack those 3 teammates of his in the middle. We've talked about defensive tackle forever and ever and ever. They do need a push there. Obviously, you need somebody to get some kind of pass rush in the middle. You got Nichols, you got Jenkins, you got Young, Tillery still doing his thing. Farrell, and then you got Silvera. So, what are your thoughts about this group of defensive tackles?
Yeah, I think Nichols and Jenkins are the starters. When they play a 3-4, then obviously you would probably throw in probably Tillery is the next guy when they have 3 guys with their hand on the ground, although it's more of a pass rush. But it's a mix of bigger guys, nose tackles that can stop the run. So you have Jenkins, who's 340. I kept Farrell just because he's a 4th-round pick. He's a second-year player. When his pads are low, he can eat up a double team and he could stop guys at the point of attack. He's done that on a couple 4th down runs in the preseason. I don't know if this regime's ready. Like I said, I don't think they're ready to move on from their draft picks from a year ago after 1 season. So I think they want to see what they got out of him. It was either him or Adam Butler, who's a veteran who has a chance to get onto the practice squad as one of those vets. I just liked Farrell just because the bigger body, because if something happened to Jenkins, I want another big dude inside. And then obviously on goal to go or short yardage, you want 2 big guys on the inside. Yeah. And then just the way Nate Silvera played last game, and then a little, and how he did in the joint practices from the reporters, he was moving bodies yesterday. He was the only guy on the defensive line that was knocking guys back. He knocked a guy completely on his butt yesterday on a run play, made some run tackles. He's a guy that I think if they tried to sneak him onto the practice squad, might get scooped up out of all these guys. So I needed to keep him on the roster, because if you hit on an interior lineman with a 7th pick, if he could just be a rotational guy and be a factor in the run game and give you a little bit of push, then that's a great pick in the 7th round. So I didn't want to risk losing him. Of all the guys that I was on the fence with, if this guy gets claimed on waivers, it's going to hurt me the most. It's him. So I was like, I have to find a way to keep him on this roster. So Adam Butler went the way. So Butler did not dress last night, which tells me he may have a spot locked up. But it's just tough for me to see them walking away, because Nichols isn't last year of his deal, so he probably won't be back next year. So with Tillery.
Did Adam Butler pay? He played with the Patriots before, right? Did he play with the Patriots before?
He played, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
He's an older guy who kind of was just okay last year. I do think he could find his way as a veteran onto the practice squad, where I think Silvera, if teams watch the tape, are probably someone's going to try to claim a young interior defensive lineman that can move guys.
Upside.
And this guy's he's disruptive.
Yeah.
And, Byron Young didn't show much of anything yesterday. He was getting moved around pretty easily, which was concerning. So I like the one guy that didn't make this team, and I just can't figure out what's going on with Matthew Butler. He looks lost out there. He's playing with late into games, getting moved around. Like, if they keep Butler over Silvera, I know one was a 4th-round pick or 5th-round pick, and one was a 7th-round pick, but come on. Let's keep the guy that's more explosive and more powerful. Matthew Butler, wish him the best in his next endeavor, if it's not with the Raiders.